All right, I think we are ready to begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi ishrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. Wahlul uqdatun min lisani yafqahu qawli. So, assalamu alaikum and good evening. Welcome to today's webinar entitled American Muslim Perspectives, Conversation on Careers in the Pursuit of Justice. We are so excited to have with us two very special guests today, who my co-host here, Shahad Al-Hadari, and I will be introducing shortly, inshallah. We have a federal judge and a Maryland super lawyer who've taken the time out of their busy schedules to be here with us today to share insights about their journey into law and share some advice for especially young Muslims who are considering a career in the pursuit of justice. Thank you all for tuning in, and we are so glad to have you here with us today as well. My name is Zainab Chaudhry. I'm the Director for CARE's office here in Maryland. The Council on American Islamic Relations, as you might be aware, is America's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization. We're headquartered in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. We've got about 30-some chapters and offices in about 20-some states around the country. And our mission is to protect civil rights, to enhance the understanding of Islam, to promote justice, and to empower American Muslims. I would like to welcome my co-host Shahad Al-Hadari, who is joining us from Colombia. Shahad, assalamu alaikum. How are you doing?
Alaikum salam. I'm good, thank you. My name is Shahad Al-Hadari, and I am a volunteer for the CARE Maryland Division.
And I had the pleasure of being introduced to Shahad when Shahad was working with the MSA, the Muslim Students Association, at her high school this past spring, I think it was, right, Shahad? Like you guys were working on a case and a situation, and I got to meet you and some of your other classmates and peers. And mashallah, I think one of the things that really struck me was your determination to stand up for justice for yourself and for your peers, mashallah. And so we're excited to have you here today as well. And without further ado, we're going to dive right into the introductions and the biographies of our esteemed panelists, especially because we've got a lot of great questions lined up for you. And we want to be able to get to as many of them as possible, inshallah. So Shahad, would you like to introduce our first guest?
All right. So Damani K. Ingram manages the Ingram firm. He received a Bachelor's of Arts degree in English and secondary education from the University of Maryland at College Park before receiving his law degree from the University of Baltimore, where he was a member of the Honor Council. Mr. Ingram is a litigator, advisor, and tireless advocate for his clients. He has represented clients in international transactions throughout Africa and the Middle East. In addition, he has provided legal representation for a multitude of clients within the surrounding Baltimore-Washington metropolitan area and throughout the United States. Mr. Ingram regularly presents to civic groups and professional organizations. He also serves as a legal advisor to notable nonprofit organizations within the state of Maryland and the District of Columbia. Attorney Ingram is a member of the Maryland Bar Association, the District of Columbia Bar Association, the America Association for Justice, and the Maryland Association for Justice. Mr. Ingram has been recognized by the National Black Lawyers Top 100 for 2015 to 2020. Mr. Ingram has been designated a Maryland super lawyer from 2017 through 2021. Mr. Ingram has also been selected in America's Top 100 Personal Injury Lawyers for 2020.
Great, and our next guest that we have here today is the Honorable Judge Zakia Mahassa, who currently serves as a judge in the United States Immigration Court. She has held this position since July 2018. Judge Mahassa earned a Bachelor of Business Administration degree in 1981 from the University of Maryland and a Juris Doctorate in 1986 from the University of Maryland Carey School of Law. Prior to this appointment, she served for 21 years as a magistrate in the Circuit Court for Baltimore City Juvenile Division, where she decided cases involving delinquent children and abused and neglected children. Judge Mahassa was the managing attorney for the House of Ruth Domestic Violence Legal Clinic from 1995 to 1997, where she was also a staff attorney from 1992 to 1995. She has represented abused and neglected children from 1988 to 1992. Judge Mahassa served on the Maryland Judiciary Rules Committee, and she's been the chair of the Alternative Dispute Resolution Program in the Juvenile Division. She's also served on the statewide Foster Care Court Improvement Program Steering Committee for 15 years, and she has been a mentor for law students, for middle school and high school students. And I personally, subhanAllah, like, we've spoken before, Judge Mahasa, and I was trying not to fangirl over you because, mashallah, the inspiration that you offer for so many, especially young Muslims, especially Muslim women who wear the hijab, who are navigating some very difficult spaces and trying to remain true to their identity, is really something that cannot be understated enough. And so, alhamdulillah, thank you, both of you, for joining us here today.
My pleasure.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. My pleasure too.
All right, we're gonna start. Okay, so if you guys don't mind, tell us a little bit about your jobs and what does your typical day look like?
Well, I'm going to let the judge go first because that's part of the deference we do give
Oh,
to
come on.
judicial officers.
Well, I will. So we won't keep going back and forth since time is an issue. Okay. So before the pandemic, my day consists of some days I'll have a multitude of immigrants, whom we call respondents, come in and declare to me whether they, well, let me start over. My job is basically to determine whether people who is been alleged by the government to be in this country illegally, whether there is some relief that can be granted to them to allow them to remain in the country, or if they do have to be removed from the United States and sent to their homeland or some other country. So the first step in that is for the respondent, as we call them, to come before me and make a declaration as to whether they admit to the allegations and the charge of submitted by the government, or if they deny it. If they admit it, then they have to ask for some form of relief. Typically, it could be asylum or any other forms of relief that's available to them. And so initially, that's what they do. Then literally years go by, and that's because of the backlog of cases. Years go by, and then they will have their own individual hearing. And at that time, I will hear evidence that they want to present to the court in order to make their case as to why, even though they came into this country illegally, they should be allowed to stay. And the government presents their case as to why, because they came to this country illegally, why they should be made to leave. And then after hearing all of the evidence, I make a decision. Most often I will make an oral decision right at the conclusion of the hearing, but sometimes because any number of reasons, the issues are complicated, or I just haven't been able to decide after hearing the evidence at that moment, I will not make a decision then, and I will issue a written decision sometime in the future, and within the next few weeks after that, I'll make a decision. So in a nutshell, that's what I do.
Great. So what I do, I have a private practice. So as a private practitioner and a business owner, my day encompasses a few different things. You have the business side of it, which is actually managing my employees, and that has its multitude of things you do with ins and out of administrative duties, paperwork, and so forth. But on the legal side, I'm a civil litigator for the most part. So a lot of my legal practice deals with responding to the needs of people that are in need. A lot of my folks are people that have either been harmed by banks, people that have been harmed by insurance companies, people who have been harmed by other individuals that don't want to give them their just due in court. So a lot of what I'm doing is litigating, going to trial. During this pandemic, everything's been kind of put in little disarray. So, we're kind of managing our process of hearings and motions, writing a lot, which is through the motions practice, which has become big during the pandemic. And then there's oral argument too, and persuasion. So a lot of my day is dealt with oral argument, preparation, and during the pandemic, a lot of the written correspondence is going on. But when you're in a private practice, as the owner of the practice, you have to bifurcate your days, between administrative somewhat, and then of course the nuts and bolts of really tending to the needs of your clients. And that's what basically my days are like each day.
And it's clear that the work that you do, like you impact people's lives in a real way every single day. Like the way that you work with clients, Brother Damani, and the way that, you know, the way that cases come across your desk, Judge Mahasa, the decisions you make impact people like in a very substantial way. So have you always known that you wanted to pursue this career path, or is it something that started more organically just as you were in college taking classes?
Attorney Ingram?
Sure, no problem. So, you know, my path to the law was pretty interesting. I'm the son of two college educators. My dad was an educator. He taught at a university. He has a PhD in psychology. My mother, also a college educator too. My dad later went on to get his law degree after getting his doctoral degree while he was teaching as a professor. So I saw him from the backdrop as him, you know, his professorship, and then of course the enticements of him going and practicing law, a lot of criminal defense and litigation. But as a youngster, I wanted to get into medicine. So I thought that it was either going to be me becoming a cardiologist or maybe becoming an attorney. So, but I was really leaning towards the medicine. And then one day during my senior year in high school, my little sister got into a car accident. And it was a pretty rough, pretty serious accident. And she was taken to shock trauma. And, you know, I was out that evening and I went to the hospital. So I'm going through the waiting room and I go into the emergency room and I see my sister laid up in there with her face all scarred and bloodied. And I decided, you know what, there's a little too much blood and guts in this. So I think I'm going to take the path towards law right now. And let me go back and go against the folks that cause these injuries. But I was like, no, I'm going to go towards the legal path. So I really think it was a decision that I made at the end of high school to get into law. And that's really kind of what drove my interest, which kind of really spearheaded my decision to become an attorney.
Great.
Okay, so for me, this is really dating myself.
No, go ahead.
But at one time, there were two newspapers. Believe that or not, there were two newspapers in Baltimore, Maryland. One of them was the News American, and they came out in the evening. And they had a little puzzle called the Wishing Well. And this was a puzzle where they had letters, and the letters corresponded with numbers. And anyway, you kind of worked it out. And you, at the end, it would give you your fortune. So I was around, I guess maybe 5 or something like that. And I did my little wishing well fortune. And it said, you will be a lawyer or a doctor. So ever since then, ever since that point, everything I did was focused on getting good grades so I could get to the next step. So in kindergarten, I was like, I got to get really, really good grades so I can get into the best, I can be one of the best students in first grade. And then it was, I had to get really good grades so I can get into a good junior high school, which is what they called it back then, not middle school. And then and then I had to get really, really good grades so I could get into a good high school, et cetera, et cetera. I was just that focused. And like Attorney Ingram, at one time, I was leaning more towards medicine for a little while, but then I don't know, the analytical side took over something, I don't know, but then it was law, and I started focusing on law at a very, very early age. And so that's really, I always wanted to be from a very young age a lawyer, and it started with the wishing well.
Wow.
So that's my.
So has your faith played a role in your career choice? If so, how?
I'm sorry, would you?
Sorry, has your faith played a role in your career choice? And if so, how?
So my faith, I can't say played a role in my career choice, but it certainly assisted me with my career choice. When I first into law school, there were Well, this was pre-internet. I knew of one other Muslim female attorney, and very few male Muslim attorneys at that time. And this was actually not even in law school. This was after I actually became an attorney. I still didn't know. Very, very few. And we did start a bar association, the Muslim American Bar Association. And we started that in DC. But there were very few of us, and we called the United States and could find very few female Muslim attorneys, period. So all that long roundabout way of saying that I was an oddity. I was this African American woman who was a female, African American female who was Muslim, who covered, and nobody had really seen anybody like that, at least not in Maryland. And that's not to say that there may have been female attorneys that were Muslim, I don't know, but they weren't apparent if they were. I mean, they didn't cover, they didn't come out and say that they were Muslim that we knew of. And so because I was an oddity, I had to lean on my faith to strengthen me, to be assured that this was the path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted me to take, and that being Muslim was a strength, not something that I had to be defensive about, and just really being proud of being Muslim and understanding that I had the advantage because I was Muslim. And that was important because if you accept me even though I'm Muslim, instead of saying you're going to accept me and I'm proud of being Muslim, your countenance is different. The way that you approach people are different. The vibes that you give off are different, and people approach you in a different kind of way depending on which stance that you take. So yes, loving being Muslim and being proud of being Muslim and thanking Allah that He chose me to be Muslim, and understanding that that was a gift and not an impediment, carried me through my career.
And Judge Mahasa, before we get to Brother Damani to answer the same question, I think one of the points I really want to highlight is, even though I know we've talked about this before, but the point you just made about the fact that when you first started your career in law, you didn't meet a lot of attorneys who were hijabi Muslim women who were in this.
No, I met none.
None.
not a lot. Zero.
Absolutely.
And it's worth noting, subhanAllah, that, when we talk about, like, first, obviously we're not here for tokenism as women, especially Muslim women, but you are widely believed to be the first Muslim hijabi judge in the United States of America, which I think is like a powerful, testimony to the fact that the role that our faith can play. So you're such an inspiration to all of us, mashallah. May Allah bless and protect and preserve you for that.
I mean, and I told you before, I don't know if that is true or not.
Yep.
I don't know if that's true or not. But I know in my personal experience, no, there weren't any. Yes. No.
Mashallah. Brother Damani.
I just wanted to add to that, and I go into my story that Judge Mahasa was very much an inspiration. Many years ago, when I first started practicing law, and I was doing some domestic work, and she was on the circuit court there in Baltimore City. And here I hear about this judge who is Muslim, and she's covered. I just couldn't believe it, because even back then, there were very few Muslims that were getting into the legal field that I knew of. And there was a very small select group. And even those that were, people were hiding their Islam. They would hide it. You wouldn't really know. They would do everything else. And so really what she's done has really been an inspiration. But going to myself, I can't say that the faith guided me to the career, because I didn't become Muslim until I went into law. So, I was not a Muslim when I went into law school, but I became a Muslim while I was in law school, which was interesting. And the fact that once I became Muslim, the guiding principles of Islam, of understanding that I have a guiding principle and a way of living that, is superior to other ways of life. I just want to, it is a better way of living a life. And I could see the comparison, and there's no one, you didn't have to apologize for who you were.
Right.
I didn't apologize for being Muslim. Getting into the legal field, one of the things too is a more of a conservative type of industry. So I decided I'm going to grow my beard a little bit, right? So there weren't too many brothers out there in the legal field going into the courthouses with a beard until beards became in vogue maybe about 5-10 years ago. But before that, people looked at you like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? So my faith in Allah, and knowing that Allah has given us given me the gift of Islam, knowing that Allah has given us a guiding principle that enables us to be successful now and also be successful in the later life has been key. I draw upon my faith in my litigation because you get into a lot of uncertainties. There's times where you get nervous. You're not sure about the outcome, but you remember there's a qadr of Allah. That once you've done everything that you've had to do, that the pen has been lifted and the ink is dry, and whatever happens, it has happened. It's done. So you don't draw upon those things. I have colleagues. One colleague of mine who he's a trial lawyer like myself, and we do trial work and we goes before juries. And he said, well, Damani, I have a little secret about what I do to get prepared. I said, well, what's that? He said, I take these beta blockers, which is basically like a pill or drug to calm my nerves so that I don't get too upset when I'm presenting. I said, well, I can't do that. I don't, my beta blocker is salat 5 times a day.
Right.
So those are the things that we realize we have as Muslims that Allah has given us as these foundations. And I think that's one of the benefits and guiding principles that I've taken the faith into my practice.
So let me say a little bit about courtroom, and it was very good to see him there because back then, like he said, there were very few attorneys even when he came into the practice. I speak about him and his family.
Judge Mahasa, I think your connection, I don't know if it's my computer.
Yeah.
Can you see
Yeah, no, I can't. I think
her screen
it's
froze.
her connection.
You're backed out.
We're back now.
Awesome.
Did
We
you
lost
become
him.
Muslim first?
Yes, I did. I became Muslim first. Yeah.
And then his brother,
Yes.
and then his sister. Subhanallah. I mean, that just does not happen. That just does not happen. So was like, I talk about them all the time.
Alhamdulillah.
They need to do a little article, a little story or something about their journey to Islam, because that does not happen.
Yeah, inshallah, that has to be coming. I have to talk to them about it. We definitely have a story. It's it's an amazing thing.
You really do. You need to put pen to paper on that one.
Yeah.
I'm liking this energy. I'm liking this vibe, mashallah. And I think that's the story, Brother Damani. A lot of people would be very interested to hear.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that I've. And the funny thing is that my sister writes. My brother, he's prolific in writing, and my parents. I told everyone we have to get a book out. We got to do something. So maybe that'll be the topic, right? That'll be one of the topics.
That's so funny. The last question we had on the list is if you could write a book on one topic, what would it be and why? So we'll come back to that.
I didn't remember that question.
We added that in a little bit later.
Oh my.
Yes, indeed.
Speaking about like finding time to write a book, because mashallah, both of you have such busy schedules and you're juggling a whole bunch of different things. What are some of your strategies to manage your time? Like, how do you make sure that you're able to stay on top of everything that you need to stay on top of?
Well, mine is easier than Attorney Ingram, I'm sure, because he's not only working as a litigator, like he said, he's also managing a business. So I'm sure he's like 20 times busier than I. The one thing about my job is that most of it is done within the confines of my chambers or in the court, I don't have to take a lot of work. Well, prior to the pandemic, I didn't have to take a lot of work home. I could, I could do my work there and then just kind of come home and just be home. Again, this is pre-pandemic. So my days were, and when I'm at work, yeah, I have to manage things because I have to prepare cases and write decisions.
Uh-oh. Did we lose Judge Mahasa again, or is that my
So that it can be demanding, but my day most days, which I'll let Attorney Ingram speak for himself, but I'm sure his days are not that. Sorry.
It was just.
It cut off for a minute.
It was just.
Your
No.
Zoom connection cut out a little bit.
The internet was breaking.
Hello.
We can hear you now. It's cutting out in and out a little bit. Can you hear us?
Okay. So, hello.
I think we got you back.
Okay. So what? I don't know where to. Anyway,
the last couple parts that you were talking about.
I was just saying that my days are mostly, even though they're hectic while I am at work, I do have the luxury on most days to when I end my day, I have the luxury of coming home and not having to continue my day, at least pre-pandemic.
Got it.
So it's very, very busy while I'm at work, but it's very not often that I have to bring home work.
Got it.
Work home, unlike I'm sure Attorney Ingram.
Yes.
Brother Damani, what are some of your tips and suggestions on time management?
Time management. You know what's something funny? One of the things that to help manage your time is to learn the power of no. So.
Yes.
Making like notes to myself right here.
Yeah, yes. The power of no cannot be devalued. It can't be underestimated. So when you are in a field where you're demanded, your time is being demanded by many people for many different ventures and things, you feel an obligation to tend to people's needs. And sometimes you got to be honest and just know how you can just say, no, I really can't do that, or I can't get that to you at that time. Other than the power of no, for me is that I use ticklers, a task on my iPhones. Another thing that I do for my time management, one of the things I read in the book is called time management is not as much time management as it is energy management. So you're not necessarily managing time, but you're managing your energy resources. And so for me, it's trying to find when I operate best during the day, which would be in the morning time. So the morning time, I usually stay up after Fajr. I stay up. I don't go back to sleep, and I'll do my readings, or I'll do my exercising, and then I'll have my my ticklers for my task bar. And another thing I use, some kids I've introduced this to my kids, and it's the using of a mind node, mind mapping. So mind maps are a great resource. It's something that was created by a guy named Tony Buzan, the mind mapping skill. So it's basically a way of webbing and being able to brainstorm your ideas and organizing your thoughts in a mind map. And so those are some of the things that I do. But as far as energy management, I learned that my time is saying no, managing my energy, because I only got but so much energy.
Mm-hmm.
And saying no, knowing when you can say no.
I'm taking notes myself here.
I can that is true. That is true. And it took me years. It took me years to learn how to say no.
I'm just trying to get to it. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, because you can always get somebody to fill up your time.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That's true.
Yes, you sure can. I learned how the power to say no.
Yeah.
All right, so if you guys had the chance to go back in time, what is one thing that you would have done differently in terms of your career?
I would have found a way to go to law school full-time and not work, which I didn't do. I worked full-time at a very difficult job, and then I would have to leave that job and go to law school, which I think was well, and I know it was not the best way to do law school. So yeah, that's the one thing I would have changed. I would have been poorer, but I think at the end it would have been more advantageous for me not to try to work full time and go to law school.
For myself, I would say that I had an interesting path to becoming an attorney. So I did my whole undergrad career and graduated from undergrad with an education degree, and then went straight to law school full time. And then when I graduated from law school, I had a decision to make if I was going to go into teaching or something else. So what I did was that when I got out of law school, I wasn't ready to practice law, so I was contemplating teaching and law. I made the decision to teach. I don't regret teaching, but I do think at some point I should have taken a job at the public defender's office. I got offered a position at the public defender's office, but at that time they didn't give me enough pay. It wasn't like giving me benefits. It was really streamlined at that point. So I said, no, I got to take care of my family, and I continued to teach. So I think that one of the things I would have tried to do, which is take that risk and worked at the PD's office for a little bit, which is something that I think would have been beneficial.
Great. So has there ever been a time where you have felt like your faith conflicted with your responsibilities in your respective careers? And when you were in that situation, how did you manage? Like, how did you address that situation? And this is a question that came from one of our students who is exploring a career in law. She's actually studying for her LSAT. And one of the things that's been kind of holding her back a little bit from pursuing a career in law is because she's afraid if she ever finds herself in a situation where she's got to make a decision and it conflicts with her values as a Muslim, like how would she approach that?
Good question.
Well, you are in a country that is not run by Islamic law. And so you are going to have some challenges that you would not have had if you were practicing law under Islamic law. And that's just the nature of what you're getting into. The only thing you can do is, make dua and ask Allah to help you not compromise your deen to the extent that you're putting, that you're making haram something that halal something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made haram, and make the best decision based on with your intentions in mind, because this law is not Islamic law. So yeah, you're gonna have some, and depending on what area of the law you go into, that plays a big part too. But yeah, you're gonna have some conflicts. I mean, there's no getting around that. You just, like I said, just try to, keep your intentions in mind, what it is that you're trying to do, and make the best decision that you can.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree that we don't live in an Islamic legal system, and our society is not that. But our society has a lot of benefits that allows us to practice to the best of our abilities. Now, for a youngster going into law, you can remember and just kind of rest assured that you can make a choice on what direction you want to go, what kinds of law you may think is more consistent with our beliefs and ideals. But you're going to find situations where you have to make a choice, where you have to say, is this going to benefit me here with this case and this client and this situation, or is it going to be a detriment to me and my belief system and my faith? And you will face those choices. But one of the things that one of the things I remind myself of is that there's I think there's an ayat that Allah says that, don't get happy about the things that you get, nor about getting upset about the things that pass you, that you miss, so it's qadr. So those things kind of help you, kind of ground you to that extent. But, don't for someone pursuing law, don't be discouraged to think, well, everything's haram, I can't do anything. No, no, there will be a challenge, but like anything else living in America, there are ways to get around those challenges, but you just got to rely on the law and try to be as strong as you possibly can in those situations.
And just to reiterate what both of us said in different ways, be cognizant of the area of the law that you are entering, because some areas are more, I don't want to say consistent, but some complementary to Islam than other areas. So don't get into an area like gaming, when you know that the majority of your career is going to be haram. Versus getting into an area where maybe once in a while you may come across some challenge, but overall it is consistent or not contrary to your deen. So yeah,
that's solid advice. And the point that you made, Judge Zakia, about the fact that we live in a land where the Constitution is the law of the land. You know, that we as Muslims are required by our deen to abide by the laws of the land that we reside in, and here it being the Constitution, that needs to be part of like that central conversation. So Jazakallah khair, solid advice.
Yeah. Very good, very good.
And this is a little bit off topic, but if you study the Constitution and you study Islamic law, you will see a lot of similarities. And if I had time, well, maybe that'll come into the book part, but I don't have time to do that. But I would really like somebody to, and maybe somebody has already, I think I have even in my library, which I haven't really gotten into, but somebody to do an in-depth comparison of Islamic law versus the Constitution, because there are a lot of similarities that to me are just too close to just think that there's coincidences. I think somebody back then was studying Sharia or studying Islamic law or studying Islam or something, and they may have been studying other legal laws. They may have been studying other areas of law from other societies too, but it just seems to me there are a lot of similarities.
And I would agree with you, Judge Mahassa, that there are similarities between some of the precepts we have in Islam and some of the notions of fairness and justice that we have in the Constitution. Maybe Ben Franklin was taking a little bit of his Quran that he had and trying to talk to the other folks about what they should include in there. So from a structural standpoint, a lot of the concepts of fairness and justice that we have in the Constitution does not conflict at all with Islam at all. I mean, it supports it. But you do have the understanding that there are certain points where you're going to have to make, as you said before, you have to make a choice. You go into gaming, the entire time you're working for the Maryland Lottery, hey, look, the entire time you're compromised. Or if you're involved in making all kinds of derivative instruments and gambling, all kinds of complex financial instruments, it is what it is. But there are other areas that you can definitely excel.
Okay, so on the note of justice in America, so Islam has been part of America's story since before its founding. Justice, or adl, is one of the most important concepts in Islam. What do you think is vital in these times in order for justice to prevail in America? And what role or responsibility do you believe Muslims have in establishing it?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Okay, so what do you think is vital in these times in order for justice to prevail in America? And what role or responsibility do you believe Muslims have in establishing it?
Justice in America. Is that the gist of the question?
One part of that's the two questions. Okay. What do you think is vital in these times in order for justice to prevail in America?
That's a huge question. You take that.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. I mean, for justice to prevail in America, it's going to take honesty, honest conversation. You have to be honest about our history. It's going to take a serious conversation with honesty and straightforwardness about the history of America, about the country, how it was formed, and the basis from which it was formed, on the backs of people who were oppressed and people who and laws that were implemented to raise one race or ethnic group and to oppress another. And from there, it's going to take a lot of sacrifice. I mean, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen just from people putting something on Facebook and Instagram and marching. It's going to take some blood, sweat. I mean, that's the way change seems to work, and overall, it's going to take some perseverance. It's going to take some honest conversation, and it's going to take some sacrifice. So.
And use the law. The Constitution is a beautiful instrument, and it's fluid, and it lends itself to justice, and not always being legally correct is not always does not always equate with justice. But I really do believe that the Constitution and its amendments and statutes to a large extent lends itself to justice. You just have to dig, and one of the strengths of being an attorney is knowing how to use the law in your favor. I mean, that's one of the things that make lawyers so powerful, that you learn the law and you learn how to use it in your favor. And I do believe that the Constitution lends itself to doing that, to meting out justice.
And to kind of further what Judge Mahasa said, she's absolutely correct. You look at, if some of us would look at some of the civil rights decisions that were done in the past, you know, it didn't just start off, they didn't take one route and just start off with like, you know, I want to desegregate the housing or busing, but they took the law, they took the Constitution, and then they applied it to the case, and then kind of convinced those justices, and then the public allowed, you know, you paved the way by using the law that said the Constitution does provide your means to implement justice in this country. We just got to remind folks what's there. And sometimes you got to remind the justices what's there too, you know. You know, you got to remind them what's there too. And so, you know, and that's what being a lawyer can be so valuable. It's so valuable to be a lawyer in today's society, that we really need those that are fluid in the Constitution and comfortable and confident enough to present their cases to the jurists and the justices to make a change and make a difference. That's what I would say.
That's powerful.
Yeah. And kind of going back to what brother, sorry.
Go ahead,
what Brother Damani was saying about like just that honesty, we must be able to address our flaws and realize that there are some issues in this country to be able to move forward or to even have a conversation about change. Because we won't be able to do that unless we start realizing that there is a system that needs to change, and that there is a race that is inferior to one. So.
No doubt, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, to build on Shahad's question, I think, Brother Damani and Judge Mahasa, I think you've already answered this question to some degree, but what other additional advice do you have for young Muslims who are considering a career in law? Obviously now with, you know, this awakening around racial violence and racism within America over the past several months since George Floyd's murder in Minneapolis, there's been an uptick in the interest from people around the country in terms of like, what can we do to promote justice? What advice do you have for young Muslims who are considering a career in law?
Attorney Ingram?
Oh, yes, ma'am. The advice I would give you is this, that we need you. Muslim attorneys are needed. And of course, you know, we kind of see, you know, what's going on with the injustice that's being filmed now. Not that it just came out of nowhere. We're just actually seeing it on thank God for phone cameras and all that kind of stuff. But we do need attorneys out there to advocate for our fellow Muslims and non-Muslims out there, with people who have a grounding, a faith grounding, and can give honest, good counsel and advice. And for any Muslims that are looking to pursue this career, also to remember this too, is that, you know, the law is wide open for you. We see what's going on with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all the other abuses that have gone on, but there's a back history behind that too. we can fight the injustice that we see with policing, with the inadequate, we look at the policing, we look at the judicial system, they talk about institutional racism, but there are things that are behind that. We talk about housing, the discrimination in housing policies, the housing policies that create these public housing units, which were enforced by governments that created laws that also became the situation we have the oppression and the injustice and the application of policing and so forth. It comes from things that we just don't see. So Muslims should know that there is a way to go ahead and get involved in the legal field if you're looking at the social justice aspect. But we need you on the we need good counsel. We need Muslims to understand the Sharia, to help with issues within our communities. When we talk about dispute resolutions, just people getting good counsel to dispute, we need to have Muslims that are trained to provide good counsel to all of us as we, try to live our life as Muslims and to help our fellow human beings, because we have a responsibility to other Americans too, because we have something that's good and positive to offer. So there is a place for you. Don't be discouraged. You've got a great example in Judge Mahasa, who's, when I tell about sisters, I'm just going to toot your horn, Judge Mahasa. But you see, sisters, I'm telling you, sisters out there say, like, I'm wearing hijab, I can't do it. No, it's not the case. Right. You can do it. You don't feel like you have to compromise it. You can do it, and you can make a difference.
And my advice would be to keep your eyes on the prize.
Yes, ma'am.
Meaning keep your eye on what your ultimate focus is on in this life. That is to please your Lord and to do what you can for Muslims, and as Attorney Ingram says, society as a whole. It is the power of the law and the distractions. It can be distractions, can be very enticing, and can take you away from that focus of keeping your eyes on the prize. So my advice would be that while you're pursuing the law, and this, I remember when I was in law school, it was very hard to do that because it's so demanding that you could spend literally all of your time studying the law and not give even a little bit of time studying your deen, which is the ultimate, what you're supposed to be doing. So the balance, the mizan, always keep the balance in mind, so that yes, when you can study law, but also remember what your primary focus is supposed to be. And the two are not antithetical to each other. They are complementary, but you just have to be conscious and cognizant to make sure that you balance the two. It's very easy to forget your Islam while you're concentrating on your law. And that would be a mistake, because you do need that balance to keep you do need your Islam to keep you focused and balanced and strengthened while you're pursuing the law, or any field for that matter.
That's powerful. A lot of food for thought right there. And I remember when we last spoke, Judge Mahasa, you gave some really powerful advice. You said that
we frozen again.
Can you hear me? I think her Judge Mahasa's screen froze again, but
I can hear.
He can hear me. Okay. So in our last conversation, you had mentioned that, for especially Muslim women who wear the hijab or the headscarf, and they're, feeling overwhelmed or challenged, to never think that what's meant for you will miss you. Like, what's meant for you, you will still achieve that if it's meant for you, and to not feel like if you take off your hijab, then you can achieve more in life, or that if you put it on, that's a setback or like a roadblock or obstacle in your path to wherever you're going. I know I personally like just being in this space. Sometimes it can be very challenging. Like when you're having conversations or engaging with certain people, you walk into a space and people draw conclusions about you off of who you are just based on the way that you're dressed. And so I found your advice then so, subhanAllah, powerful and inspirational about that.
Okay.
Okay, so do you guys have any advice for turning weaknesses into strengths?
My quick advice would be, as I talked about before, is first be honest with yourself, and don't take yourself too seriously. Be honest with yourself and don't take yourself too seriously, and then you got to put the work in. That's it. You focus on it. You focus on it enough. What was weak in the area becomes strong. You know, if I'm in the gym and all I'm doing is bench press all day long and I'm doing upper body work and my legs look like chicken legs, okay, I'm not working on my legs. I got to be honest, my legs look like chicken legs, right? So let me start working out doing squats, and before I know it, that weakness can become a strength of mine. So like any other areas, you know, being honest with yourself and then focusing on that area that you want to strengthen and just stay at it. Don't stop. And it becomes what was weak before will become maybe as strong as your other strong points, or will become a stronger point for you. That's what I would say.
And a stumble is not a fall. Just because you are having some difficulty in certain areas, what you need to do is just realize, okay, this is a setback, but I'm still moving. And so that's how you treat it. And then you learn from that stumble, but you keep going forward.
Yeah, and I would agree. It's like, just don't stop. Some of us, as Judge Mahasa says, a stumble is not a fall. And so you don't lose until you quit. You know, so don't quit. You just keep going. You may keep stumbling, and at some point you get to that achievement.
Because what's for you is for you, and what's not is not.
It's not.
But the only thing you can do is just do everything that you can. But if Allah makes it clear to you that this is not for you, then mashallah it's not. But don't you sabotage yourself and make that decision without it being as clear as it can be that you believe, that is just not in the cutoff for you to do that. Just, in other words, you keep on moving as much as you can move to make whatever it is that you're trying to achieve a reality, and don't be your own worst enemy. Just keep on keeping on. A stumble's not a fall.
I like that. That needs to be a bumper sticker.
It is.
So there's a famous quote, I think it was Albert Einstein who said that if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's going to live its entire life thinking that it's stupid. Do you think that society too often pigeonholes people into pursuing a specific career that isn't necessarily suited to them? And how can young people withstand that pressure? And this actually came from a young sister who said that she was being pressured by her family to pursue medicine. And I thought it was interesting that both of you actually first started out thinking that you were also going to pursue a career in medicine too. So this is from her.
Yeah, when I read that question, I think more so than society, it's more people that are close to you, your family or your groups of people that you're involved with, more so than society. I mean, at one point, well, okay, so maybe society will expect people at a certain economic level, or people who have a certain amount of education, to go in certain fields. That is true. You can overcome that, but I think on a more personal level, it's your people who are close to you who expect you to do certain things. And at some point, you have to make your own decisions. I mean, I know people who have gotten into careers, who have gotten into law, because it was expected of them from their family, and they did it, but they were unhappy or are unhappy. Because they made that decision based on what their family wanted them to do. You have to at some point realize it's your life, and that whether your family agrees with it or not, you have to make a decision that's more comfortable for you. And that's not an easy decision, it's not, but it's a decision that you have to become mature enough and sure enough in your decision to make. because you're the one that's going to suffer the consequences if you do enter into a profession that you don't really like. You're the one that has to suffer the consequences later on.
Brother Damani, would you like to add anything onto that?
I mean, she really covered it. Really, the question, I understand the question more from the standpoint of families, and coming from our communities, I know exactly what, not exact, but I can empathize with what that young person was experiencing. We have a pigeonholing into medicine or some kind of STEM field, it's medicine or engineering. If something outside of that, then you fail. But you have to look at doing something that you like, that you feel a passion about, or that you feel that you can make a difference in, because it is your life. Ultimately, you will spend a lot of time studying, time, energy, money, emotional energy spent. So you might as well do it in something that you like and you have some control over, than doing what's just going to please your parents or your relatives or your local community. So, you have to focus on what's going to be best for you and what's going to make you happy.
That's right.
Okay, so we kind of touched base on this earlier, but if you could write a book on one topic, what would it be and why?
Oh yeah, I already told what mine. I think we kind of both told you. Yeah. Mine would be a comparative study of the laws of the Islamic law and American law. That would be my ambitious book.
Wow. Mine has to be, it's about Islam in my family, the coming of Islam to the Ingram family. That's a life story that I have to put on the paper for my family and for my descendants and for people in general. So that's got to be my first book. So inshallah, that'll be it.
Inshallah, yes.
Well, we can't wait to read both of these books.
Oh my goodness.
I know I'm going to be adding them to my book list once they're published, inshallah. And I think that's all the time we have. We actually wrapping up just on time. So Jazakumullah khair to both of you. Brother Damani, may Allah bless you and your families.
Amen. Thank you.
And all of the incredible work that you're doing. You're both an inspiration to so many of our community members, especially young Muslims who are growing up, looking for guidance and leadership. So may Allah bless and protect both of you.
Shahad, what is it that you want to do?
So I'm kind of between medicine and law right now. So I was like, oh wait.
Hey, just go to the emergency room. You might make your decision. Go ahead and you off a little bit, hang out.
Most of my family are like doctors or engineers. So I feel like I was kind of spoon-fed that, from a young age. Like my cousins, my uncles, aunts. But recently with like this work and getting involved with care and stuff like that, I feel like this activism work and just like speaking out is more me, especially because like I kind of found my voice doing this because I'm very shy and more reserved. So just being able to speak out and like, it's like a different space for me and I really like it. So still trying to choose, but
she's been killing it. We heard
I'll be looking out for you.
She's on fire, mashallah. She spoke at a rally in Howard County and knocked it out of the ballpark, mashallah.
Oh, okay.
So with that, we will wrap it up. And Jazakumullah khair again for your time. Shahad, it was a pleasure to co-host with you.
Thank you.
Okay, this was great. And good seeing you again, Damani.
Always good to see you again, Judge Mahasa. Always, always.
All right, salam.